Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to a special Friday episode of the Football Insomniac podcast. I'm your host, Colin Watt, and today I'm delighted to be joined by a good friend of mine, the host of the Friday Club on A Celtic State of Mind. It is the wonderful Laura Bradburn. Laura, how are you?
Not too bad, how are you?
Not too bad. It's Friday, it's the weekend. We're all looking forward to rounding up our work and taking some time off. First of all, though, before we get into it, I just noticed the fantastic shirt you're wearing. Tell us a bit more about it.
Yes. Well, just in case anybody from A Celtic State of Mind is watching, it is not a Rangers shirt, it is a Fiorentina shirt. I know the colours can be a bit weird, but it is actually purple. It even has Batistuta on the back. I don't know if it's a genuine shirt or not, because I did buy it off eBay, but when it did come in, it had all the legit labels on it and stuff, so either it's legit or somebody's just getting very, very good at faking it, but I'm happy with it anyway.
I definitely think the fakes are getting better, but that's probably another topic for another day. But we will be discussing Serie A as we look across Europe and see who will be the winners and losers this season, who will be going up, who will be going down, who might win the Champions League. The last 8 are they into now? The last 8 now? Yeah, it will be, yep. And it's going to be the same in the Europa League. So let's take a look at that. We'll also take a look at the careers of Messi and Ronaldo, both of them crashing out of said Champions League through the week. Is the golden era of Messi and Ronaldo over? Who will be there to replace them? And where do they look on the list of the greatest of all time? Is it Messi? Is it Ronaldo? Is it Pele? Or even Maradona? We'll take a look at that. Laura will be then telling us about who would be at her dream football dinner party. I'm looking forward to some interesting guests there and to see what Laura will be cooking us up. And then we'll take a look more into Laura herself. We'll find out how she got involved in A Celtic State of Mind and also how she first developed her love of football. As you can see, it's not just strictly Celtic with the fantastic Gabriel Batistuta top, and it's already been picked up by Kevin Livingston here, who's coming in saying, how much for that Fiorentina top?
Well, you see, it was only 30 quid on eBay, which probably will make you laugh in the comments thinking, nah, definitely not legit, but there you go. You can get some pretty good replicas on there, so I would head over to eBay and just search to your heart's content, because there's not just Fiorentina. I was looking at Borussia Dortmund and Parma and various other ones from my childhood, so there's plenty on there.
And if eBay wants to sponsor the Football Insomniac, they can get in touch with Paul John Dykes at stateofmind.net. But yeah, so let's take a look at the main topic of today's conversation, and it is the ups and downs across European football. Now, we're getting into the nitty-gritty. In the Premier League, there's only 9 games to go. In Scotland, it's as little as 6. Some leagues have 10 or 11 games to go. It's all come down to the scheduling because of this sort of condensed season this year. But firstly, let's take a look at the Premier League down south and in England. Manchester City top with 68 points, 14 points ahead of Manchester United. Leicester a point behind that, and Chelsea finishing up the top 4. Laura, it's City's title to throw away now, isn't it?
I think so. It's funny, a lot of people talking about Liverpool's fall from grace, but actually I was listening to another podcast during the week, and somebody on there was saying that actually it's less a fall from grace and more a return to normality, and that's unfortunate for any Liverpool fans watching, but you know, the way in which they've dominated the league the last couple of years is the anomaly, is the exception, whereas Man City, you know, I think they get a bit of stick, and quite rightly so, because of the finances at their disposal, but ultimately that's not the only thing that matters. You know, there's plenty of managers have had plenty of money over the years to do with as they wish. Not all of them could provide the results that Pep Guardiola has over the last few years. Yes, he's not captured the Champions League, which I think is their remaining sort of big aim, but you know, you can't deny that he's provided at various points throughout his time at Man City some of the best performances and most dominant performances in the Premier League era.
Do you think that this could be the year for Man City to win the Champions League? You take a look at some of the teams that's already crashed out. Barcelona, Juventus. It's really, I don't know, I think it's maybe just Man City that's left as the big team in the competition this year.
I would say so. I mean, I think they're certainly playing well enough to do it. It's just whether they can. I think the semi-finals is as far as they've got before. So, It's not much further for them to get to the stage that they need to be at. What would be ironic about it is, yes, I would say they probably look like they're maybe the favourites to win the whole thing, and I would say still that they're not the best Man City team we've seen over the last few years. So it's just it shows you as well as having a good team and being up for the fight and being in the right circumstances. It's as much about what other teams are doing as it is about but what you're doing as well.
And a big good morning to everyone who's joining us on social media. We're live on Facebook, on YouTube, and on Twitter. A big welcome to everyone who's joining us in the comment section. Let us know who you think will be the biggest winners and losers across European football. We'll take a look at the minute we're taking a look at the English Premier League. We reckon that City's to throw away now. And as you said, if you look at shambolic title defences, Liverpool's, I think, just peaks above Celtic's this season. But just before we came on air, some breaking news in the English Premier League. It looks like Chris Wilder will be relieved of his duties at Sheffield United. Sheffield United sitting bottom of the league with 14 points. 10 games to go. They're about 12 points away from safety. I think they're guaranteed to go down no matter who they bring in now.
Yeah, I would say so. It's that old adage, isn't it? That, like, you know, if you're bottom from Christmas onwards, really, the chances of you getting to a point where you're even able to get out of the relegation zone in the Premier League for any amount of time is really rare. I think he's one of these managers that definitely has a distinct message that he tries to get across to the players, and when it works really well. But whether the message is tired out or whether the players don't believe in what he's putting across anymore, they certainly aren't putting across the performances they have in the last couple of years in the Premier League, and it's showing now. And these things can happen at clubs. I think it doesn't necessarily make the person concerned a bad manager. It's just that, you know, circumstances can change or messages become stale, and I think in that case that's probably what's happened. I'm sure he'll go on to get another job and be as effective, if not more. You never know, even if the Sheffield United job in the Premier League has given him a platform that he maybe goes on to a bigger club with more resources. What he could possibly do with that it would be interesting to see.
Yeah, I mean, that's 5 years he was in charge of Sheffield United, brought them up into the Premier League, into what they call the promised land down south, the money that comes in. But when you take a look at it, some of the signings this season have really let them down. Guys like Ollie McBurney for £20 million. I think it was the same for guys like Buck as well, Ollie Buck. So they just haven't, they've got good results, but they just haven't been consistent enough. And I think that Chris Wilder will certainly move on, and probably you'll see him, I think he'll go back to the Championship first and bring a team up, but he's certainly got a good career ahead of him. When you take a look at the sort of last spot, because I think that's the only one that's up for contention here, you see Fulham on 26 points, just behind Brighton on goal difference, Newcastle only a point ahead of that, Burnley 4 points ahead on 30, and Southampton even still in that relegation battle on 33 points. When I take a look at it, I see Fulham staying up. I think they're on a great momentous run. You're seeing they're starting to click at this point. I think Newcastle and Southampton are the teams that could be in trouble. Southampton had a fantastic start to the season, but without that, I think they'd be sitting in the bottom three.
Yeah, I'm not sure I agree totally about Southampton. I think they might have enough about them to stay up, the same as Fulham and Burnley might have, especially with the experience all three of those have got in the Premier League in recent seasons. But I think the other guaranteed one for me is definitely Newcastle. I mean, they've been absolutely atrocious. I don't think Steve Bruce is long for that job, to be absolutely honest. And I do know a couple of Newcastle fans via social media, and they are just, you know, absolutely fed up watching their team and getting no joy from it whatsoever, because as we all know, especially in a league as competitive and as large as the Premier League, there are teams who, you know, never really have a chance of getting into Europe or having a chance of winning a trophy, but the very least they expect is some entertaining football along the way. And if their manager isn't even providing that, then that's grounds enough in itself for them not to remain. And I think Steve Bruce probably falls into that category. He could very easily have a lot of fans on his side up there, or down there, I should say, from here. But you know, he's a homegrown talent. He's from the area. He knows sort of how big the club is within the area, being a one-club city and all that kind of thing. He had a real opportunity to make an impact there, and you don't need to do much in Newcastle to become a legend. And I think he's just missed a huge opportunity there, and I think he'll probably be out the door before long.
Yeah, I mean, Newcastle, I think they're the epitome of the word sleeping giant. I mean, you look at the fan base that they've got, the potential that they have as a team, and Fraser Ogilvie brings up a good point here as well, saying Newcastle need a new owner. Could be a big team in the north of England, but he's just not that interested. And that probably comes down to it. I think the involvement of Mike Ashley, he's been desperate to move on from Newcastle now for a number of years. There's been talks that ongoing takeover by a Saudi Arabian I'm trying to think of the right word here, a Saudi Arabian party basically, looking to take over consortium. That was the word, consortium. Big words for a Friday morning here.
I know it's too early for the words like consortium.
A Saudi Arabian consortium looking to take over. I think it's run into a bit of trouble. Will they still be interested if Newcastle are a championship team? That would be an interesting one to look at.
I mean, I think if you read a little bit outside the scope of football, there's possibly other reasons why that particular Saudi Arabian group or conglomerate or whatever word we want to put on it is...
That's another big word for a Friday morning.
Exactly. I'm trying to upscale you on these words. We're going to have a thesaurus word in a minute, but no, I think there's definitely other reasons why the Saudi Arabian takeover might not happen, other controversies and things that certainly fit into the not fit or proper purpose, so I think that might be down the drain as far as that's concerned. But I certainly think, fresh ownership, fresh management, fresh everything there, and there's a real opportunity for somebody to make an impact, because there's very few clubs, and I include the likes of Celtic and Rangers in this. Newcastle always have high attendance, no matter how well or how badly the team is playing. Obviously, current circumstances aside, but there is an opportunity there to really make a statement and make a name. I remember growing up as a child and seeing, the likes of Faustino Asprilla, Alan Shearer, Les Ferdinand, David Ginola. Yep. They didn't win very much, but my God, they are one of the most memorable teams in Premier League history, and for all the right reasons. They played this kind of, to quote Anthony Haggerty, rip-roaring, always scoring football that we always love to see, and I think that's all the Newcastle fans want. They just want a team to be proud of. Yeah,
definitely. So, I mean, there's some interesting shouts in the chat, actually, about Mark Hughes potentially taking the Sheffield United job. Mark Hughes has been on a Celtic State of Mind before, a fantastic interview by Paul John Dykes, if you've not already seen it. That would be an interesting one. I still don't think Mark Hughes would be able to save them. And if you had to put money on it, we don't advertise gambling on here, but between ourselves, if you had to say who would be going down this season in England, who's the three?
I think Sheffield United, Newcastle, and probably Brighton for me.
So you think West Brom would be able to stay up?
I think they might have a chance. I think they've had the change of manager and all that kind of thing. There's still some freshness there that might come into its own before the end of the season. So we will see. I mean, you're talking about some pretty dire teams all round down there. It could be any of them. But yeah, they would be my three picks personally.
I'm going to go with Sheffield United. I'm going to go with West Brom. I think they'll go down. And I'm going to throw it out there. I think Southampton are in trouble. And they're definitely one to look out for. Coming up this year, it looks as if Norwich will win the championship, and then it's really between Watford, Swansea, Brentford, Reading and Barnsley. Maybe some new faces into the Premier League, which I think is always a good thing. So 10 games to go down south. I think City only have 9. But yeah, keep an eye out for Southampton and see where they actually finish up this season. We'll take a look across Europe as well, but first of all, we'll take a look at the league where most people know what's going on. It's the Scottish Premier League. Rangers obviously wrapping up the title there at the weekend. Celtic are probably odds on to finish second as well, being 16 points ahead of Hibs with only 6 games to go. But it's the bottom of the table for me that I find really, really interesting. Kilmarnock on 25 points, Hamilton on 26, Ross County on 29, and then there's a bit of a jump to Motherwell on 35. I think for me, Kilmarnock's in serious trouble. I really think they could go down this season. Hamilton seem to survive every sort of relegation battle they ever get into. But for me, it's going to be between Kilmarnock and Ross County. And Ross County have got that kick since Yogi Hughes took over. Kilmarnock have still to find that yet.
Yeah, and I think there's a real danger there. They've obviously got rid of their previous manager, and it doesn't seem to have provided the turnaround that they would have looked for as yet. And it's an interesting thing that you say, because the other teams that you mentioned in that little group, apart from Motherwell, obviously, the other teams are all teams who have been out with the top flight in Scotland in recent years, and it wouldn't be a huge shock for any of them to go down again. But Kilmarnock, have been an ever-present, certainly for as long as I've been alive, in the top flight, and it would be a different league without them, I think. They've gone through periods in the past where they have had Bobby Williamson, I remember, was particularly successful with them, had them even challenging for Europe at various points. But you're talking about, that's maybe 20 years ago now, and they've been a long time since they were at those heights. I personally think that, like you say, with Motherwell being quite as far ahead as they are, with Hamilton always seeming to have a knack for getting out of these situations, and Ross County, as we know all too well, being able to pull results out the hat that you wouldn't expect, I can see them surviving as well. So yeah, I think unless Kilmarnock buck up their ideas pretty quickly, they're going to be in bother.
And there's always been this criticism about the Scottish League, where you see the split after 33 games. But I always think that brings more exciting games to the league. When you look at it, when the likes of Kilmarnock have to play teams that are round about them, like a Hamilton or Ross County, like a Motherwell, I think that's an exciting end to the season. I can imagine, for example, if you're going for the title and there was only a couple of points between it, and say, for example, Celtic had to play Aberdeen, but Rangers got to play Hamilton, you would be screaming that there's an imbalance there. But I think with the split, it offers more exciting games, and it definitely gives teams a chance in the bottom half to get out of that relegation zone. But honestly, the way Kilmarnock's been playing football this season, I really wouldn't be surprised they go down. And as quite a few people are saying in the chat, including Highland Paddy here, who's welcome to the show, hope Kilmarnock and Hamilton go down, get rid of those plastic pitches. Yeah, I'm not a fan of the plastic pitches at all. And if Kilmarnock goes down, that's one of them down. But my fear, I say a fear for Kilmarnock, is if they go down, I don't know how long they'll be down. I can't see them being a bounce straight back up team.
No, I think they would suffer from a lot of the same issues that a lot of clubs do, especially if they have been in the situation, as we've said already, that they are used to the top flight and they're used to whatever financial benefits they get from that, however small they are in Scotland. They're going to have to entirely change their business model and how they operate from next season if they do go down, and it's whether they can adapt to that quickly enough in order to A, survive on a financial basis, and B, still provide a quality of player and a quality of coaching that allows them to get back up as soon as possible, because I've no doubt that while it might not be something that we're sure will happen, it will certainly be their aim going forward. As for the plastic pitch thing, I mean, I think the frustration for me with it is, you hear about these all-weather pitches and that kind of thing. I think Livingston maybe have one as well. They don't actually serve their purpose a lot of the time. Games are still getting called off, and they aren't all weather except in name. They still are subject to getting rained off or getting snowed off or anything like that. And so if they're not providing that purpose, then I don't really understand the benefit of them, because every other that's really the only benefit to a plastic pitch, is the idea that you can play them in all weathers. Anything else is players are at increased risk of injury. You kind of have to play a different game on them because the ball bounces and rolls differently. It kind of baffles me that if the one aspect of them that's good isn't working, why would you persist with them the way that clubs seem to be doing? I'm not really sure. Perhaps they're cheaper to maintain, but I don't even know that that's the case. Somebody in the comments might know better than me whether that's the case, but that might be the only other thing I can think of.
It's interesting, we've actually got some Newcastle fans in here, and I'll just bring this one up from Richard Balfour saying, "My club is rotten from top to bottom. It's a dead club." Now, when your fan base is feeling like that, that must be extremely hard. Especially as we said, they're a team that has a very loyal fan base. So when you see that, it's really disappointing to see, and you want to see them coming back and bouncing back stronger. you take a look at the successes of teams like Leicester, even West Ham this season, pushing right up there. I don't think it's out of the realms of possibility that you could see Newcastle, if managed correctly, could do something like that. And I know we're going back to the English Premier League, but it's just an interesting point that was brought up there. So I don't know. I think definitely a case of mismanagement down there.
Yeah, I think that point that Richard brought up was just an indication of he's one supporter of many who I think are feeling the same emotions, and it's hard to support your team in those circumstances, even if their on the field play is great. Never mind if you know the off the field stuff is a mess and the on the field stuff is a mess, then it's a double whammy that makes it really hard for you to be enthusiastic.
Yeah, I agree with you there. So going back to the Scottish Premier League, who's the team going down? Who's the team in the playoff spot by the end of this season?
I don't see an awful lot changing as far as that's concerned. I think Hamilton will be in the playoff spot and will probably survive. I think they've got enough to overcome anybody that would be in the playoff spot from the league below. And I would probably say Kilmarnock haven't shown anything to suggest that they're going to turn it round in the next 6 games or so. Even with, like you say, with the split, I think they would have shown more about them, more fibre about them to have turned it round before the split, before now. But that would be my 2 tips: Hamilton for the playoffs and Kilmarnock to go down.
I can't disagree with that at all. I think Kilmarnock are down this season, and I think Hamilton will fall into the playoffs. When you take a look across European football, there's only one league that's as close as can be, and it's the Scottish Championship. Between the 2nd place team and the 9th place team, there's only 8 points. So literally all these teams have so many opportunities to get into the playoffs this season. But I think on that basis, when you look at the fact that there's maybe not a consistent 2nd team in there, I think Hamilton will stay up. I think Hamilton will have enough.
Yeah.
And especially the way the Scottish playoff system is based, with 4th having to play 3rd, the winner of that playing 2nd, and the winner of that playing the relegate or the team in the playoff spots. It's odds are in the favour of the team that's supposed to be going down. So yeah, I think Hamilton will stay up as well. Let's take a look across European football though, and let's start with France, and an interesting story in France with Lille sitting 2 points ahead of PSG, looking to win their first title since 2010-11. A team we actually got to see this season when they played Celtic. Were you impressed by them? Are you surprised? And the kind of drop-off that PSG have had? They seem to always run away with that league.
Yeah, well, it goes back to the point that I was saying earlier about Pep Guardiola. You can have all the money in the world. If you don't have the right coaching and the right setup in place, then it doesn't really count for much. Obviously, it's easier to have the finances there than not, but you still have to apply them properly, get the right players in, get the right mix of egos and mix of ability, and then apply it on the pitch. And they obviously have never fully got that right, certainly on a European level, less so on a domestic level. But I think Lille, what I saw from them, I don't watch a lot of the French football, but what I saw from them when we played them was, everything you would expect from a team that's challenging for a league title. They were very fast paced. They could knock the ball about. It wasn't hard to make us look unfit, but they did. Yeah. They made us look tired, and they made us look, more out of shape than we already probably are. And I think certainly I'm not surprised, having seen a bit of them, to hear that they are top of the league, in because, they had all the attributes of a team that probably deserves to be there, especially when, I've seen a bit more of PSG in the Champions League and stuff like that, and they can be a bit... you don't get me wrong, they can score goals. Who couldn't, with teams, players like Mbappe and Neymar in the team? But yep. They are a bit plodding in the way that they move the ball around, and they can be a bit slow to get into gear and that kind of thing. And I think they maybe suffer from that when you've got a team like Lille challenging you directly like that. Yeah,
and when you take a look across Europe in general, there was a number of teams going for 10 league titles in a row this season. Celtic, Juventus, Bayern Munich. It looks as if the only one that's got a chance of even doing it this year is Bayern, sitting top of the Bundesliga, 2 points ahead of Red Bull Leipzig, and quite a gap between that and Wolfsburg. The German football is one of my favourite leagues to watch. So it's it's really entertaining. Anyone that hasn't seen it, I mean, you just had to take a look at Dortmund's performance in the Champions League the other night, and that's a team that's sitting 6th in the Bundesliga. So that's the quality that you see in that league. It's interesting when you take a look at the teams that had won the title last season, and you look at who is sitting top this year. It's almost as if this pandemic's had a complete reset across European football. PSG sitting second, looks as if they could lose the title to Lille. Atletico Madrid top of La Liga. Inter Milan coming in out of what almost seemed like nowhere to be sitting top of Italy, despite the fact Juventus have won 9 titles in a row. Even the reign of Liverpool. Now, Liverpool has been really impressive for the last couple of seasons, but it was almost like a complete reset across European football, wasn't it?
It's almost like, as we've harped on a Celtic state of mind, that this pandemic has affected everybody and not just Celtic. You know, they have harped on about it in a way, and yes, you know, they've had a lot of isolations, and there are situations in the Scottish League certainly where the rules don't appear to have been applied quite as fairly across the board, but across Europe and across the world, you know, this can't fail to have had some sort of an impact. There will be some teams affected more than others by having to play in empty stadiums. There will be teams that have players who are homesick, who are not able to see their families. There will be teams who, you know, have had more COVID isolations and COVID outbreaks than others. So, you know, it's not a surprise to see that the apple cart has been upset this year. It has in every walk of life, and so football should be no different. Having said that, you know, I think there are probably some teams out there who maybe use that as a bit of an excuse. You know, Juventus probably is one that springs to mind. They haven't really reinvented their team all that much over the years. They've added some players of quality at various times. De Ligt and Rabiot are two that spring to mind, but those two actually took a while to settle into the team.
Yeah.
Ronaldo isn't getting any younger as much as they would protest otherwise. I think they're just getting to a point, and as well they've got an untested manager in Andrea Pirlo, who, for all he probably looks the part and for all he had a successful playing career, he certainly hasn't seemed to transfer that over to management in any way. So it's not a surprise to see other teams coming to the fore in the circumstances, and you just wonder whether things will return to the status quo when life returns to normality, or whether this is a signal to a more permanent change.
Yeah, and I think that's something that we'll look back on round about this time next season, when we see how it is once fans are back into the stadiums. And do you know, it's been an incredible season if you look across all of European football. And the teams that are up there, fair play to them, because they've managed to put consistent performances in. And I'm sure there'll be a couple of interesting last day title races across Europe. And that's all you can ask for as a football fan. There's nothing better than that. Probably not some of the Man United fans that are sitting watching us right now, but that Aguero moment, that's what you want to see across football. That you love to see that. So yeah, we'll take a look back at that. A big welcome to everyone who's joining us here on the Football Insomniac on A State of Mind. Delighted to be joined today by my guest Laura Bradburn, wearing a fantastic Fiorentina top. Quite a few people asking what top it was. Maybe missed the start of the show. A Fiorentina top. And who is it you said was on the back of it?
Batistuta. I don't know if I can show you it. Look, I can show you it maybe there. There you go.
Batistuta.
Yeah, number 9. Favourite.
And there was a bit of promotion for buying these tops on eBay earlier on in the show, so you can go back and watch that later on.
Other internet auction sites are available.
But on the topic of Batistuta, that's a really good segue to our next talking point today, which is taking a look at the period of domination of world football by Messi and Ronaldo. Both players now crashing out of the Champions League this week. Is this period coming to an end? I mean, Ronaldo's now, 36 years old? Messi's turning 33. They've been playing at such a high level for almost, 15, 20 years now? Is this the end of an era? Will we see some new emerging talent coming through that will replace the quality of Messi and Ronaldo?
Well, I sent a tweet out a few weeks ago that, you know, for me it is the end of an era, certainly for my age group. You know, I'm sort of an age with Messi and Ronaldo, not to give too much away, obviously. But they can't last forever, certainly not at the levels that they have been showing. I think they are both of a fitness and an ability, footballing-wise, that they will carry on beyond the kind of normal lifespan of a footballer, but whether that's at the level that they have been over the last years is probably highly doubtful. I think they probably have been on the decline for a few years, and it's only really now that people are willing to accept that might be happening. But it's amazing to see the cycle of life, if you like, and the cycle of football, and how things just move on so swiftly. We've got, for every Messi and Ronaldo that's retiring, you've got an Mbappe and a Haaland coming through. That looks like the next big battle, and one that I'm certainly looking forward to. Before Messi and Ronaldo, you had, well, I'm probably going back a little bit further, but Ronaldo that played for Inter and Real Madrid and all those kind of teams, proper world-class strikers that you would pay money to watch on their own. It's just always exciting. I think football never fails to deliver, and even though you might not end up having players of their level, we were lucky to have them, and I'm sure we'll see somebody else, if not hit those heights, certainly excite us as much as years to come.
Yeah, and just backing that up, Stephen Smith here on YouTube saying, this is the Haaland and Mbappe era. They're on the verge of destroying Messi and Ronaldo's stats already. And we're going to take a look at the stats. So if we take a look first at Messi, he debuted back in 2004 against Espanyol at the age of 17 years old. Since then, he's went on to score 659 goals in 766 games for Barcelona. That is just an incredible, they're incredible figures. Internationally, he scored 71 goals in 142 games, 10 La Ligas, 4 Champions Leagues, 3 Cup Winners, 6 Ballon d'Ors, 6 Copa del Reys, an Olympic title. You could go on. And then you compare that to Cristiano Ronaldo, made his debut in 2002 with 2 goals in his debut, which suggests that you're going to be a great player if you can do that. Went on to score 665 goals in 884 games, 102 goals for Portugal in 170 games, 3 Premier Leagues at Manchester United, 2 Serie A's at Juventus, 2 La Ligas at Real Madrid, 5 Champions Leagues, 4 Club Winners' Cups, and 5 Ballon d'Ors. That is an incredible list of achievements for both players across the last 15 to 20 years. It has been this period of domination, and the question is always asked, are these two the greatest players of all time?
Well, I think it's the same as any situation. We can't really compare any two players from any different eras, because football is so different in each era, and also nobody has the privilege of having seen every player at their peak. There'll be people who never saw Pele play, who saw Messi's full career, and vice versa. So it's a difficult debate, but they certainly, I think for our generation, we can take pride in the fact that we have players that we've seen their full career who can certainly stand up to your Peles, Maradonas, Cruyffs in a conversation like that with sort of a decent reason to be there. I think the interesting point about Haaland and Mbappe destroying the records at the same age as Messi and Ronaldo is a fair one, but what it also makes me think of is part of what's made Messi and Ronaldo so good is their consistency. They've delivered those insane stats year on year for 15 years. If we're sitting here in 15 years' time and Mbappe and Haaland have done the same thing, then fair play. But at the moment, you're talking about, for Mbappe, maybe 4 or 5 years that he's been at the top of the game, Haaland even less than that. So while the start's been good and they do look exciting, it remains to be seen whether they're quite of the level of a Messi and Ronaldo, certainly in terms of longevity.
And we take a look at Erling Haaland and Kylian Mbappe. Haaland, only 20 years old, turns 21 in July, has played 158 career games and scored 116 goals. That is a phenomenal return. And he made his debut aged 15 years old. That's scary. I mean, when you're 15 and you can play a professional man's game of football, that is frightening. Mbappe, 22 years old, 229 games, 147 goals. He's also already made 39 appearances for his country. I mean, that's unbelievable. I mean, we're talking about guys roughly with the same age gap between Messi and Ronaldo. It's so easy to draw that comparison and say, well, this is the period of domination of Haaland and Mbappe. But for me, they're so different to Messi and Ronaldo. What was incredible about Messi was his close control, his ability to take players on, and Ronaldo had that same experience. Had that same ability as well. I think as they got older, they concentrated more on putting the ball in the back of the net, and you see the stats kind of going up in that sense. But these are two out and out strikers. These two remind me very much of a prime Ronaldo, not Cristiano, the original Ronaldo, Ronaldo Luiz, R9 as he's referred to on social media, and I think they'll definitely blow away his stats.
Yeah, I think they probably will. I think, unfortunately for Ronaldo, his main issue was obviously the two massive knee injuries that took a huge chunk out of the middle of his career. Otherwise, I think his stats would have been much better. For me, it's going to be hard to say that, you know, either of them are a better player, because I think actually what he had was he had all the best bits of Mbappe and all the best bits of Haaland in one player, and I think that's what makes him such a enjoyable player to watch back. But I think they can certainly, you know, push. And the other thing to remember is, you know, Haaland and Mbappe are living in a time where we're much more aware of stats and sports science and fitness and all that kind of thing. They have the ability, yes, but they also have the means to outstrip anybody who's gone before them, just because they're living in a more modern era. So that's not to take away from their incredible achievements so far. But I mean, it's Mbappe, what is he, only 21 still? Something like that?
22, yeah.
22, yeah. I mean, when you think about the fact that, you know, to bring it back to Celtic for a moment, there's players who are 23, 24 who we are wondering in our own club whether they're still too young to take on any responsibility. This is a guy who led the line for his World Cup winning national team, 2 or 3 years ago now, and he's only 22 now. My suspicion on that is, if you're good enough, you're old enough, that old adage, and I think that remains the case. Haaland is proving the same thing. I don't really think age matters if you've got the ability.
And then just an interesting point brought up here by Scooby Not 82, I had to bring this up. Pele, a 1,200 goal player when footballs weighed about 2 ton and was played in flip-flops. But no, I mean, if you take a look at
that's if you believe his stats. I think they keep getting bigger every time somebody apparently breaks them, but you know.
So that was a point I was just about to bring up. So I looked up the official what is classed as Pele's world record. Now this included games played in friendly matches, games when he was playing for the Brazilian army. There's lots of different games. Now apparently he played 1,363 games and scored 1,281 goals. But when you look at the official FIFA records, they have him down as 638 games and 619 goals. Now that's already been surpassed then by both Messi and Ronaldo. And I think if you continue with the record that Haaland and Mbappe have, they'll probably do the exact same. So we always say that probably the three greatest of all time is between Maradona, Pele, and R9. For me, once they've retired, you can probably look back on it. I think Messi and Ronaldo could be the new greatest of all time. And if I had to choose between the two, for me, it's Messi. Yeah,
I mean, I've seen both of them in the flesh, been lucky enough to do so, and certainly Messi just appears to me to be a more enjoyable player to watch. I know that in years to come I'll look back on videos of his play and his goals and things, and it'll spark a lot more joy in me. I don't disrespect Ronaldo as a player. Cristiano Ronaldo is unbelievable and he's a testament to what you can do with the right work ethic, but I think he's extremely, you know, inspirational for anybody about making the most of your talent. Now, he was very talented to begin with, but he didn't rest on his laurels as far as that's concerned, and he certainly used Messi as a kind of tool to push himself. He's a few years older, and I think saw Messi coming up and thought, no, I need to keep ahead of this kid. So it's a really interesting debate, because I would say Messi is more of the football purist's choice, whereas Ronaldo is more of a choice for people who think, you know, he's almost like a robot. He's almost like a kind of goal-scoring machine, a kind of stat-breaking machine, and that has to be respected as well. Just my personal preference, and the one I'll look back on with more nostalgia, I'm in agreement with you, will be Messi.
And I think, as you said, having that competition between each other, because one was playing for Real, one was playing for Barcelona, and it brought the best out of them. So
Yeah.
if Messi scored a hat-trick on the Saturday, Ronaldo was determined to score a hat-trick on the Sunday.
Yeah.
And that's what brought the best out of them. And there's always been that question about what if the two of them played for the same team? And I genuinely think that could be a case next season. Messi's contract's up at Barcelona. It looks as if that Ronaldo will move on from Juventus. And I don't think it'll be a big team we see them at, but I could see them both lining up alongside a certain Lewis Morgan out at Inter Miami this summer. So Lewis Morgan, Cristiano Ronaldo, Lionel Messi, what a fantastic front three.
It's a bit like the MSN Mark II, isn't it? No, but I mean, I actually think in a lot of cases where you talk about players that are so in competition with each other, you often think, I wouldn't like to see them in the same team because they're too similar or they do too many of the same things. I actually think Messi and Ronaldo, especially the way Ronaldo's played in his later years, more of a number 9 than anything else, I think they would complement each other really well. I think Messi could certainly assist Ronaldo to increase his goal scoring tally. Whether that be something that he would want to do, I don't know, but I certainly think it would be interesting and exciting to watch, that's for sure.
And I know we've got some people that watches actually from Miami that tune into the Football Insomniac. So if you get the chance to see Ronaldo and Messi, even at that age, alongside this up-and-coming star Lewis Morgan, who isn't from my local town, or well, he is, but I don't like to say that because, you know, people might think you know him and stuff like that. But no, if you get Morgan, Messi, Ronaldo up front, they are winning that MLS next season. I'm telling you that. But no, let's make a prediction now, right? And who knows if this show will still be here in 10 years' time, right? But let's make a prediction now. Who's going to be the overall better player of the next generation? Is it Haaland or is it Mbappe? I think if you look at, in terms of goals, I think Haaland will be out there. When you look at Mbappe, I think he'll have went on and won a lot more in his career. And it's how you determine that. Is it the goals or is it the achievements?
I think certainly for me it's the achievements overall, but I think to look at them more as players, I think I might be doing Haaland a disservice. He might go on to develop more sides to his game, but I think he is definitely, and don't get me wrong, I definitely see a place for this in the modern team, but I think he is an out-and-out goal scorer, and that's what he prides himself on, and that's what he's there to do, and that's fair enough. I think Mbappe is a little bit more of an all-rounder. He can play a few more different positions. He can offer a bit more of a threat from different positions on the pitch, and so maybe that'll make him the more all-round player. But like equally, for all that we've talked about competition between the two and who we prefer, the same with Messi and Ronaldo, you've just got to, at the end of the day, admit that, you know, you're just fortunate if you get to watch players of that kind of calibre at all, regardless of who they are or who they play for.
Definitely. And there is some other big players that's coming through that's still very young. You've got Camavinga, the young 17-year-old midfielder. Guys like João Phoenix that already made a massive move to Atletico Madrid. Even guys like Jadon Sancho, who could go on to make a fantastic career out themselves. But I think there's always been players that's been under the surface between Messi and Ronaldo. Guys like Suarez, guys like Neymar. And I think guys like Sancho and even Fati at Barcelona, they'll be like that as well. And it'll be the period of domination between Haaland and Mbappe, and I am absolutely up for watching that over the next 10 to 15 years.
Yeah, absolutely.
So a big welcome to everyone who's watching us on A State of Mind here on YouTube, on Facebook and on Twitter. It is fantastic to have you here on a Friday morning. I'm sure you're all looking forward to the weekend just like us. But if you get to the weekend, normally in non-COVID times, you'd probably have a couple of friends over for a couple of glasses of wine, a couple of beers, maybe ordering some food. And that moves us on to what our next topic is today, and it is the topic that appears every week on the Football Insomniac. It is the Dream Football Dinner Party. And just before we start here, hopefully in the next few weeks we'll be able to bring some of these up on screen of the players that we're going to suggest. A big thanks to Apparel Goatee, who are going to be doing some work with us to bring up some illustrations of these players as well. So that'll be interesting to have the graphic on screen. Dream Dinner Party, Laura, you are hosting, so it is in the Bradburn household.
Yes.
What are you cooking?
I am probably cooking about the only thing that I can even remotely cook, and that is steak, which a lot of people say is a hard thing to do. But and this podcast is also not sponsored by Tefal, but I have this thing called the Tefal OptiGrill that basically does all the work for you, and so that's what I'd be doing, a nice hearty steak with some veg, and I'm sure they wouldn't complain if they had a game the next day or something like that. So yeah, that would be me. Pretty simple, but pretty enjoyable if done right.
Now that's the question. Done right. Now this is
Yes.
going to cause massive arguments in the live chat here. How do you cook your steak?
Well, it's interesting that you should say that, because the Fiorentina top is quite appropriate here. I was actually on holiday in Florence a few years ago, and we went to a restaurant where the owner of the restaurant, it was a bit of a comedy bit, but he would come out and basically admonish anybody that asked for their steak well done, and just basically refused point blank to serve it. I take it on the medium side, slightly more cooked, but yeah, I like a little bit of blood on the plate, but nothing too massacre-y. I don't like it blue or still mooing at me or anything like that. But yeah, medium will do me well. That's fine.
I'm a bit of a medium rare guy, but I can appreciate a medium steak. So yeah, I'm definitely up for that one. And who's the first person round at the Bradburn household? Who's coming with a bottle of wine? Who is the first one there?
Well, I don't know if he would come with a bottle of wine, but he might come with some cigarettes, as Johan Cruyff would be my first out-and-out choice. I think he might not be the most entertaining guest in terms of providing a lot of jovial stories and jokes and things like that, but I mean, the football education you could get from the guy would be second to none. I would recommend his book to anybody. I've gone back and looked at his career, and I just think, I've heard it said before, but I don't know that there's an individual, like single person, who's had a bigger impact on modern football than Johan Cruyff. I think he's dictated the way that a lot of modern coaches play, and he put those wheels in motion 20, 30 years ago, when you look back at even the 92 Barcelona dream team and all that kind of thing. And these are aspects that he brought over from his playing days at Ajax and for the Dutch national team. I think he would just be fascinating to talk to. It's funny, he talks about football in very simplistic terms, and yet there are things that people don't seem to notice or seem to point out until he says them, and you think, I can't believe I've never thought about football in that way before. But yeah, I just think he's a bit of a hero of mine, and he would definitely have to be in there.
And I think, and someone will correct me if I'm wrong, but is he not the only player to have a move named after him, the Cruyff turn? I can't think of any other players that have maybe got that move named after them. And it's stuck through the period of time as well, because it was so long ago that it happened.
Yeah, I think the Panenka is named after, I think it's a Hungarian player or something, so the Panenka penalty is another one. But yeah, if he's not the only one, he certainly, I think, was one of the first. And like you say, it's so iconic that you could talk about that. You know, people I think start to not appreciate things once they're in the consciousness for a long period of time. But the fact that he even had the idea to do that, to get away from a player when nobody had done it before, is crazy. Like, that just shows the way his mind worked compared to everybody else, and a small glimpse of the footballing genius that he was. Yeah,
definitely. So, Johan Cruyff, the first one at the door, his steak is on first. Who's second?
Sort of going down the same route, and unfortunately maybe a bit of a boring one, but I think because they would bounce off each other quite well, and they themselves were good friends, but Pep Guardiola would be my other one. He's I hate to say it because I think a lot of people don't like to hear it these days, but I'm a bit of a disciple of Pep. I've read a few books about him. I just think his coaching philosophy is great. I don't think he gets the credit he deserves, you know, like he managed that Barcelona team to utter dominance, and everybody says, well, he had Messi and he had this and he had that. He had to go in and get rid of Ronaldinho, get rid of Eto'o, essentially break up one of the other amazing Barcelona teams and build something himself. Yes, he had Messi, and yes, he had Iniesta, yes, he had Xavi. He made those players the world-class players that people talk about today, so you can't retrospectively say, you know, oh, he had those players, so they must have been good. No, he helped make them as good as they were. So, and I think just the way he talks about football, his ideas, a lot of them from Cruyff himself, are just so interesting to listen to, and hopefully they would bring out the best in each other if they were at the table together.
Certainly, you get a lot of interesting insight from Pep Guardiola. And again, I think he's one that's going to be on to be one of these greatest managers of all times. I know we spoke about the greatest players of all times, but Guardiola will eventually be up there. Keep the comments coming in the live chat as well. I mean, it is making me hungry looking at all the food that everyone's suggesting as well. I've seen some garlic bread, some tortellini. I've even seen some cheesy pasta.
Wow.
So I know lunchtime is not too far away, but you're still cooking.
Would it be too lowbrow for me to go macaroni and cheese instead?
Well, I mean, I wouldn't say so. I mean, there's been different options that's been on here. When I had Alison Conroy on, Alison Conroy from Clyde Super Scoreboard, she gave me a full 3-course menu. But then I've had people like Ewan Boyle, who was previously the Morton social media manager, part of the Just One Cornetto podcast, and he told me that it would be cheese toasties. So, I mean, there's a complete scale here. You can fit somewhere in between, but mac and cheese, that's always welcome, whether it's a side or a main meal, I would say. So we've got Johan Cruyff, Pep Guardiola. Who else is joining them at the table?
So to bring a bit more lightheartedness, because I think Johan and Pep might be slightly serious, but it would be Jimmy Johnston. I think he's probably, the greatest player in the history of the club that I support. He would certainly have lots of stories about Celtic at their most dominant, and we all know that he was a fan of a little bit of an off the cuff sort of left of field story as well, and I'm sure he would have plenty of stories to make us laugh. He would just provide a bit of a good contrast to my previous two guests, and obviously having somebody Scottish there to kind of to ground things a little bit more for me would definitely be helpful as well, although I'm sure I would be as nervous around him as I would around Cruyff and Guardiola.
And the stories you hear about Jimmy Johnson, they're second to none. Some of the celebrities that came and visited him in his last few months, even people, and I don't know how well known this is, but people like Bono coming to see him before he passed away. It just shows the testament of the man himself, and he's a massive loss, not just to Scottish football but to world football. And he was generally one of the best ever. I mean, there's that famous story of him getting a standing ovation at the Bernabeu at Alfredo Di Stefano's testimonial. So I mean, if you need any, Real Madrid fans throughout history have had the best of players and have always been hard to please. So if you need any further confirmation of the ability that he had, then you needn't look no further than that. Yeah, definitely. So we have Cruyff, Jimmy Johnston, Pep Guardiola. Who is the fourth and final person at the dinner table?
Well, this is a bit of an interesting one, well, for me anyway, but I thought to myself, I don't know whether I want to do this or not, and then I thought, no, I have to do it. I couldn't have this gathering at the table without this person, and it's my own granddad. He was never involved in football, like professionally or anything like that, but my dream has always been, he unfortunately passed away the year before I was born, but I always hear stories like my mum was the main reason I got into football and that kind of thing, and it was through my granddad. He was born 20 years after Celtic came into existence, and the way I hear them talk about his love for football and how much pleasure and pride he took in being a Celtic supporter, the idea that I could sit down with him and Jinky and Johan Cruyff and Pep Guardiola and just sit and talk football all night would just be my ideal table. So not an exciting last choice for everybody in the chat or anything like that, but certainly for me would be my ideal table to sit at.
No, and I don't think anybody can grudge you that at all. It would be, I know everyone's got that one person out there that they'd love to bring back, just even if it was only for 24 hours, just to have a final meal with them. So it's a lovely tribute. So rounding off the table, we have your granddad, Jimmy Johnson. Not your granddad's not Jimmy Johnson. I should have put a wee pause in there. Your granddad, Jimmy Johnston, Pep Guardiola, and Johan Cruyff. And you're cooking them either steak or mac and cheese, or maybe a bit of both.
Yes.
Who knows? And
Oh,
it's
well,
getting,
you know, they do mac and cheese on the side in America, so maybe we could bring that over here.
exactly. I'm all for that, and I know there's a lot of people coming in the comments. I just wanted to bring a couple up, including this one from Stephen Smith. I'm off takeaway for Lent. All this chat is killing me.
Sorry, Stephen, sorry.
Zinco coming in here as well. Cheese and bacon toasties. Oh God, I'm starving. Well, we're getting
wow.
closer and closer to lunchtime, and we are getting closer to the lunchtime Axon Bulletin, which Laura will be hosting, joined by Jim
Yes.
Orr and Anthony Haggerty. But just before that, as we wrap up today, let's take a look at yourself, Laura. So obviously, we just mentioned you are the host of the Friday Axon Bulletin. Tell us a bit about how you got into football fan media. Where did it all begin for you?
The first thing that happened was actually there was a website called the Football Pink, which is still going today, and I just really fancied having a go at writing, which is where it all started for me, and got in touch with them because they were looking for writers at the time, and started writing a couple of pieces for them. That then proceeded on to, I did a bit of writing for a site called The Gentleman Ultra about Italian football for a couple of years, and that progressed into podcasting from that point. I was on something called the Serie A Sit Down and did a couple of things for the World Football Index, and that's basically how I got into it. With regard to a Celtic state of mind, actually what happened was, in addition to writing for other sites, I also had my own blog at the time, and I used to quite like doing football book reviews. And one of the book reviews that I did at the time was I picked up a copy of Quality Street Gang that Paul John Dykes, who runs Axom, wrote, and he got in touch with me after that to say that he really appreciated the review, and we've kept in touch ever since, up to the point where I became involved in the podcast. So that's kind of like a brief summary of things, but yeah, it was just a kind of hobby that has developed over time, and as you'll know yourself, with things like Twitter and Facebook out there, it's very easy to make connections with people if you are writing about things that they're interested in, and that's how it all got started.
Yeah, definitely, and as you say, you can see your love of football through all the appearances that you've done on A State of Mind, even hosting the Friday show, not the Wednesday show, and that is something that I want to speak about. So you now host the Friday show, and this is something that's only just happened in the last few weeks. What was your feelings like when you had the opportunity to host that show, and with your co-hosts, your guests, Jim Orr and Anthony Haggerty, people that have incredible experience in media, and you've got to keep them in check. How has that been so far?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's crazy because, I feel like I'm sitting talking to two guys who have so many more years experience and so much more knowledge than me. So really, I do have a bit of an easy job as far as that's concerned. It's really about providing them with the platform and the questions to talk and to wax lyrical about all things Celtic. The one thing that I've found quite difficult to do, because I've never done it before, although I am hopefully getting a little bit better at it, is to keep the show flowing in some kind of manner. People watching, and I've watched things before and not really understood, but it can be difficult to be sitting thinking, what are we going to fill this hour's worth of content with? And I'm sure you're the same. Like I said, it's usually not that difficult for me because you've got Tony and Jim who are never short of a word or two, so so they can help out with that as far as that's concerned. But really, I think the main responsibility as a host is to sprinkle your own opinion in there when you can, but really provide a platform for your guests and make sure that you're providing interesting talking points for people to watch and discuss. I always like to inject a bit of lightheartedness into things as well, because especially this season more than any other, we've needed it. So.
Yeah, no, that's for sure. But taking a look at your time on different platforms of fan media, doing your articles and doing your own blog, what's been your favourite moment so far?
I would say the ones that always give me a little bit of a thrill are when like a player who I've maybe written a piece about acknowledges that I've written something about them and either retweets it or comments on it, or things like I've written a piece about Gary Lineker that he read and said thanks for. Same with Chris Sutton, Paul Ince. And these are situations where independent fan media and the ability to just go on and write something on the internet and have the very people that are your heroes or the very people that you're writing about see it and then tell you did a good job is like absolutely unbelievable. So they've been some of my favourite moments. And to be honest, and this is not just sucking up to the current situation that I'm in, but I'm really enjoying doing the podcast as well, because I just think I have other Celtic supporting friends and family and things like that, but none of them like to sit and talk Celtic to the extent that I do. I could talk about them all day and never get bored, and it's just nice to be part of a community of people who are of the same thinking, I've realised already with hosting that I was worried that I was going to just be repeating subjects from earlier on in the week, and you do try and avoid to do that, but what you do realise is that they're getting different people watching every day. Some people like to go over the same subjects again and again, and that's fair enough, and I just really enjoy being able to do that with people and talk about Celtic, which is one of my main things that I love to do.
And I think that has been a welcome relief for everyone this season, is with the fact that we've not been able to get to games, the fact that the pubs have been closed, just having a platform, even if you're not on a show, if you're in the comment section, if you're sharing it, if you're liking it, you're getting involved and you're getting your, whether it be frustrations or feelings out there. And I think that's probably helped quite a lot of people. And it's been an absolute pleasure seeing the work that you've done so far, Laura, and I'm sure there's a lot more to come over the coming months and years ahead. And it's been an absolute pleasure having you on today's Football Insomniac here on A State of Mind. We are now over 10,000 strong on YouTube and over 5,000 strong on Facebook. Do give us a like, do subscribe to the channel, share it with your friends. We're trying to grow as many of these podcasts as you can. I'm sure we can all agree that Laura has been a fantastic guest today. So first of all, a big thank you for coming on today, Laura.
No, thanks very much for having me on. I really enjoy watching the show all the other weeks. I think the standard of guests you've had on has been absolutely amazing. So even though it's maybe dipped slightly this week, I have still enjoyed it.
Don't say that. Not at all. Not at all. And I'm sure the comments are about to say the same. But you do have to go because you do have the Axon Bulletin coming up at 12:30. Wiz, as I said,
Yes.
You've been joined by Jim Orr and Anthony Haggerty. I'll be back on Wednesday for a St Patrick's Day special of the Football Insomniac, where I'll be joined by Irish journalist Rachel Lynch, and there's some fantastic guests coming up, including Clyde One Stephen Mill and BT Sports Rory Hamilton in the next few weeks. But until then, it is Friday. Go and enjoy yourselves. Come back if you are Celtic minded for the Axon Bulletin at 12:30. But most of all, take care, stay safe, and we'll see you all next week.